The conference room fell silent when Damien Vance walked in 15 minutes late, leather jacket slung over his shoulder, dark hair disheveled like he had just rolled out of someone's bed. Fiona Kerr tried not to stare, but it was impossible when every other woman in the advertising firm was practically drooling over the man who had just purchased their company for an amount that made the newspapers gasp. "Sorry I'm late," Damien said, his voice deep and unapologetic. He tossed his jacket over a chair and rolled up the sleeves of his expensive shirt. Traffic was hell. Fiona knew that was a lie. She had seen him pull up in his Aston Martin 20 minutes ago and sit in the parking lot talking on his phone, probably to whatever model or actress he was dating this week. The tabloids loved Damien Vance, the 32-year-old real estate mogul who had built an empire buying distressed properties and turning them into luxury developments. They loved him even more for his revolving door of beautiful women and his reputation as someone who never called back. She looked down at her notes, determined to stay professional. At 28, Fiona had worked too hard to get where she was to let some rich playboy distract her. She was the lead creative director on the campaign that would determine whether her entire team kept their jobs under the new ownership. "Let's begin," their former CEO said nervously. "Fiona, why don't you present your vision for the Vance Properties campaign?" Fiona stood, smoothing down her navy dress. She had practiced this presentation 100 times. She clicked to the first slide and began explaining her concept for marketing Damien's newest development, a series of converted warehouses in the arts district that would become loft apartments. Halfway through her presentation, she noticed Damien was not looking at her slides. He was looking at her. Not in the predatory way she expected from someone with his reputation, but with genuine interest, his dark eyes focused entirely on her face as she spoke. It rattled her, but she pushed through, finishing strong with projected numbers and demographic analysis. "Questions?" she asked, meeting his gaze directly. Damien leaned forward, his elbows on the conference table. Why should young professionals care about exposed brick and industrial chic when they could buy a modern condo for the same price? It was a good question, the kind that showed he actually understood his business. Fiona felt a flicker of respect. "Because they're not just buying an apartment," she said. "They're buying a story. They're buying the chance to tell their friends they live in a converted warehouse in the arts district, that they're part of something creative and authentic. Your developments are not about the buildings. They're about the lifestyle, the identity." Something shifted in Damien's expression. He sat back in his chair and nodded slowly. "I like it. When can we start?" The meeting ended with handshakes and relieved smiles from her colleagues. Fiona began packing up her laptop when Damien appeared beside her. "Dinner," he said. "Tomorrow night. We should discuss the campaign." Fiona looked up at him, at his perfect jawline and designer stubble, at the way his shirt fit across his shoulders. She knew exactly what dinner with Damien Vance meant, what it had meant for dozens of women before her. "I'll send you my availability by email," she said coolly. "We can set up a proper meeting. I'm asking you to dinner, not a meeting. And I'm telling you that I don't mix business with pleasure, Mr. Vance." His eyebrows rose slightly, like he was not used to being turned down. "Good. Let him be surprised. It's Damien," he said, "and I respect that. But I'm still going to ask you to dinner as a business meeting because I want to understand your vision better. Tomorrow at 7. I'll have my assistant send you the details." He walked away before she could argue, leaving her standing there with her laptop clutched to her chest, irritated and, though she hated to admit it, a little intrigued. The restaurant was the kind of place that did not have prices on the menu, all mood lighting and servers who moved like ghosts. Fiona had worn her most professional outfit, a charcoal pantsuit that said business loud and clear. Damien was already there, sitting at a corner table, but he stood when she approached. He wore dark slacks and a white button-down, no tie, and he looked infuriatingly handsome. "You came," he said, pulling out her chair. "You made it a business meeting," she replied, sitting down. "I'm very serious about this campaign. I can see that." He settled across from her and handed her the wine list. "Pick whatever you like." They ordered, and for the first hour they actually talked about work. Fiona showed him mock-ups on her tablet, and Damien asked intelligent questions, pushing back on some ideas and expanding on others. He knew his properties intimately, could describe every unit and amenity, and he had strong opinions about authenticity in marketing. "Too many developers try to pretend their buildings are something they're not," he said, cutting into his steak. "I'd rather be honest. These are warehouses. They have history. Let's honor that instead of hiding it." "That's exactly what I want to do," Fiona said, feeling that same flicker of respect. "People are tired of fake. They want real." "Is that what you want?" Damien asked, his voice dropping slightly. "Real," Fiona set down her fork. "Are we still talking about advertising?" "I don't know. Are we?" She met his eyes across the table. "Mr. Vance, Damien," she corrected. "I know your reputation. I've seen the pictures. I've read the articles. You're very good at what you do, both in business and apparently in your personal life. But I'm not interested in being another name on your list." She expected him to laugh it off or make some charming excuse. Instead, he was quiet for a long moment, his jaw tight. "You're right," he said finally. "I have a reputation, and I've earned it, but that doesn't mean I'm that person with everyone all the time." "What does that mean?" "It means maybe I'm tired of being treated like a walking scandal. It means maybe I'd like to have dinner with someone who challenges me instead of agreeing with everything I say because they want something from me." Fiona studied him, looking for the lie, for the practiced line he had probably used before. But his expression was serious, almost frustrated. "I challenge you because it's my job," she said carefully. "Not because I'm interested in whatever game you're playing." "Good," Damien said, "because I'm not playing a game, not with you." They finished dinner talking about other things, books and music and the city. Fiona found herself laughing at his stories about disastrous property inspections and entitled celebrities demanding custom amenities. He asked about her background, and she told him about growing up in a small town upstate, about putting herself through design school, about the first campaign she ever led that completely flopped. "You learn more from failure than success," Damien said, signaling for the check. "Is that from experience?" "I've failed at plenty of things." He signed the receipt without looking at it and stood. "Let me drive you home. I can take a cab. I know you can, but I'd like to drive you." Against her better judgment, Fiona agreed. His car smelled like leather and expensive cologne, and he drove with easy confidence through the city streets. When he pulled up in front of her apartment building, he left the engine running. "Thank you for dinner," Fiona said, her hand on the door. "Fiona," she turned back. "I'm going to ask you out again. On a real date this time, not a business meeting. And you're going to say no because you think I'm a player who's going to hurt you, and maybe you're right. But I want you to know that I haven't stopped thinking about you since you walked into that conference room and looked at me like I was late to my own party." Her heart was beating too fast. "You were late to your own party. See, you challenged me." He grinned, and it transformed his whole face, made him look younger and less guarded. "Good night, Fiona Kerr." She got out of the car and walked to her building, feeling his eyes on her the whole way. When she reached her door and turned around, he was still there, waiting to make sure she got inside safely. Damn him. The next 3 weeks were a blur of work. The campaign launched with a photo shoot at the warehouse development, and Fiona spent long days styling shots and directing photographers. Damien was there often, not interfering but watching, learning. He had a way of making everyone feel comfortable, of rolling up his sleeves and helping move furniture when needed. "You're not what I expected," Fiona admitted one afternoon. They were standing on the roof of one of the buildings, looking out over the city. The photographer was setting up for golden hour shots. "What did you expect? Someone more?" She searched for the word detached, someone who just signed checks and showed up for photo ops. Damien shrugged. "These buildings matter to me. I'm not just flipping properties, I'm trying to create something that lasts." "Why real estate?" Fiona asked. "You could have done anything." "My dad was a construction worker," Damien said, his voice going quieter. "Broke his back when I was 15. Couldn't work anymore. We lost our house because we couldn't pay the mortgage, and the bank didn't care that my dad had spent 30 years building other people's dreams. I swore I'd never be powerless like that again." Fiona felt something shift in her chest. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It made me who I am." He turned to her, the setting sun casting gold across his face. "It also made me angry for a long time. I spent my 20s trying to prove something to everyone and to myself. I made a lot of money. I also made a lot of mistakes." "Is that what the women were? Mistakes?" Damien's mouth tightened. "I was never dishonest. I never promised anything I couldn't give. But yeah, I was selfish. I wanted to feel something without having to risk anything. And now I'm 32, and I'm tired of empty hotel rooms and women whose last names I don't remember. Now I want something real, and I don't know how to get it because everyone sees the headlines instead of me." He said it so plainly, without self-pity, that Fiona believed him. She reached out and touched his arm, a brief gesture. "I see you," she said softly. Damien's eyes darkened. He opened his mouth to respond, but the photographer called out that they were ready. The moment broke, and they went back to work, but something had changed between them. Some wall had started to crack. That Friday, Damien showed up at Fiona's office with 2 cups of coffee and a proposition. "Come with me tomorrow," he said, setting a latte on her desk. "Come where?" "I'm visiting a property upstate. It's a whole estate that's been abandoned for 20 years. I'm thinking of buying it and turning it into a boutique hotel. I want your opinion." Fiona hesitated. A day trip alone with Damien Vance seemed dangerous for all the reasons she had been trying to avoid. But she was curious, both about the property and about spending more time with him away from the office. "What time?" she asked. His grin was immediate and bright. "I'll pick you up at 8. He was exactly on time, arriving in a different car this time, a Range Rover that was more practical for country roads. Fiona had dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Damien wore jeans too and a leather jacket, and he looked relaxed in a way she had never seen at the office. "Coffee and bagels in the back seat," he said as she climbed in. "Help yourself." They drove north out of the city, through suburbs and eventually into rolling countryside. Damien had good taste in music, and they argued companionably about whether classic rock was better than modern indie. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by comfortable silences. The estate appeared after 2 hours of driving, a sprawling Victorian mansion set back from the road, surrounded by overgrown gardens and tall trees. It was beautiful and sad at the same time, all peeling paint and broken windows. "Wow," Fiona breathed as Damien parked. "Right." He got out and came around to open her door. The family that owned it went bankrupt in the early 2000s. It's been sitting empty ever since. I've been trying to buy it for 3 years. They walked up the curved driveway and Damien produced a key from his pocket. "I finally closed last week." Inside was even more spectacular. A grand staircase dominated the foyer, and chandelier crystals lay scattered across dusty floors. The rooms were enormous, with high ceilings and ornate molding. Someone had left furniture behind, sheets draped over shapes like ghosts. "It needs a complete renovation," Damien said, his voice echoing in the empty space. "New electrical, new plumbing, new everything. But the bones are solid." Fiona walked through the rooms, her mind racing with possibilities. She could see it as a hotel, intimate and elegant, the kind of place people came for anniversaries and special occasions. She said as much to Damien, and his eyes lit up. "That's exactly what I'm thinking. 20 rooms maximum, a restaurant using local ingredients, maybe a spa in what used to be the conservatory." They spent hours exploring, climbing creaky stairs and peering into abandoned rooms. In what must have been a ballroom, Damien took her hand and spun her around, humming a waltz. "What are you doing?" Fiona laughed, dizzy. "Imagining what this place could be," he said. "Can't you see it? People dancing, lights everywhere, music." "You're a romantic," she accused, but she was smiling. "Maybe I am." He pulled her closer, and suddenly they were not dancing anymore, just standing together in the dusty ballroom, her hand in his other hand at her waist. "Damien," she whispered. "Tell me you don't feel this," he said. "Tell me I'm imagining it and I'll back off." Fiona looked up at him, at the intensity in his dark eyes, at the way he was looking at her like she was the only thing that mattered. She could not lie. "I feel it," she admitted, "but I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of being another one of your stories. Of falling for you and then watching you move on to someone else." Damien let go of her hand and cupped her face instead, his thumbs gentle against her cheekbones. "I'm not going to move on. I'm not that person anymore, and even if I was, you're different. You've been different from the first moment." "How do I know that?" "Because I'm telling you. Because I'm standing in an empty house in the middle of nowhere asking you to take a chance on me, even though I know I don't deserve it. Because I'm terrified too, Fiona. Terrified that you're going to walk away and I'm going to spend the rest of my life wondering what if." His honesty broke through her last defenses. She rose on her toes and kissed him, soft and tentative at first, then deeper when his arms came around her. He kissed her like he was drowning and she was air, like he had been waiting his whole life for this moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damien rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me tonight," he said. "There's a bed and breakfast in town. Separate rooms if you want. I just don't want this day to end." Fiona nodded, not trusting her voice. They found a charming inn with flowered wallpaper and a proprietor who looked delighted to have guests. Damien booked 2 rooms as promised, but they spent the evening together, eating dinner at a local diner and walking through the small town as the sun set. "Tell me about your family," Damien said as they strolled past antique shops and cafes. Fiona talked about her parents, both teachers, and her younger brother who was in medical school. She talked about Sunday dinners and childhood pets, and the time she accidentally set the kitchen on fire trying to make crème brûlée. "You're close with them," Damien observed. "Very." "Are you close with yours?" "My mom, yes. She's the strongest person I know. Raised me on her own after my dad got hurt. She's the reason I worked so hard to give her the life she deserved. She must be proud of you, she is, but she also worries I'm lonely." He glanced at Fiona. "She's not wrong." Back at the inn, they stood outside Fiona's door, neither wanting to say goodnight. "Thank you for today," Fiona said. "For showing me the estate, for trusting me with your plans. Thank you for coming." Damien brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Can I take you to dinner when we get back? A real date?" "Yes," Fiona said and kissed him again, softer this time, sweet and full of promise. The drive back to the city the next morning felt different. Damien held her hand over the center console, their fingers intertwined. They talked about everything and nothing, learning each other's quirks and histories. By the time they reached Fiona's apartment, she felt like she had known him for years instead of weeks. Their first official date was at a small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. Damien was nervous, she could tell, fidgeting with his napkin and talking too fast. "Relax," Fiona said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "It's just me." "That's why I'm nervous," he admitted. "I want this to be perfect. It already is." Over pasta and red wine, they talked about their hopes and fears. Damien wanted to build something that mattered, that would outlast him. Fiona wanted to create campaigns that actually helped people instead of just selling them things. They both wanted stability after years of chaos, wanted to find someone who understood them. "I've dated a lot of people," Damien said carefully. "I'm not going to lie about that or pretend it didn't happen, but none of those relationships were real. I was going through the motions, filling time. With you, this is the first time I've felt like myself in years." "I believe you," Fiona said. "But you have to understand, your reputation exists for a reason. People are going to talk when they find out we're together. They're going to say I'm just another one of your flings. Let them talk. I know the truth. You know the truth. That's what matters." After dinner, they walked along the waterfront, the Manhattan skyline glittering across the river. Damien wrapped his arm around her shoulders, and Fiona leaned into his warmth. "My brother is going to interrogate you," she warned. "He's very protective." "Good, he should be. When can I meet him?" "You want to meet my family?" "Of course I do. Don't you want to meet my mom?" Fiona stopped walking and turned to face him. "Damien, we've been on one official date. I know, but I also know that I'm serious about you. I'm not going to waste time playing games or wondering where this is going." "I want to be with you, Fiona. If that's too fast, tell me and I'll slow down. But don't doubt how I feel." She kissed him there on the waterfront, with the city lights reflecting off the water and the sound of traffic humming in the background. She kissed him and let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, the bad boy had really changed. The weeks that followed were a blur of happiness. They spent every free moment together, stealing lunches during work days and spending weekends exploring the city. Damien was different from anyone Fiona had ever dated, confident and successful, but also surprisingly thoughtful. He remembered small details, like how she took her coffee and that she hated cilantro. He sent her flowers at work, not expensive arrangements meant to impress, but small bouquets of wildflowers that reminded her of the estate upstate. The office noticed, of course. People whispered and speculated, but Damien had been right. Their opinions did not matter when what they had was real. Fiona met his mother on a sunny Saturday afternoon. Millionaire Vance was a petite woman with silver hair and her son's dark eyes, and she welcomed Fiona with a warm hug. "I've heard so much about you," Millionaire said, ushering them into her modest home. "Damien talks about you constantly." "Mom," Damien protested, but he was grinning over lunch. Millionaire showed Fiona photo albums from Damien's childhood, pictures of a skinny kid with too long hair and a mischievous smile. She told stories about his determination even as a boy, how he had started his first business at 14, mowing lawns and saving every penny. "He's always taken care of me," Millionaire said, her voice going soft, "even when he was too young to have that responsibility. I worry that he forgets to take care of himself." "I'm trying to change that," Fiona said, glancing at Damien. "I can see that. He's different with you. Lighter." When they left, Millionaire pulled Fiona aside. "He's had a hard road, my boy. He built walls to protect himself, and I've watched a lot of people bounce off those walls. But you got through. Don't let him push you away if he gets scared." "I won't," Fiona promised. Damien met her family the following weekend. Her parents were welcoming but cautious, especially her father, who asked pointed questions about Damien's intentions. Her brother Marcus was more direct. "I've read about you," Marcus said over dinner. "You've dated a lot of women." "Marcus!" Their mother scolded, but Damien held up a hand. "It's okay, he's right, I have. But I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about your sister, and I'm not going anywhere." "He better not be," Marcus said, but he was smiling slightly. "Because if he hurts you, I know where he lives." "Fair enough," Damien said and offered his hand. Marcus shook it, and Fiona felt the tight knot in her chest loosen. 3 months into their relationship, a tabloid published photos of them together with a headline that made Fiona's stomach turn. "Has Damien Vance finally found love, or is this just another fling?" She was in Damien's apartment when she saw it, curled up on his couch with her laptop. He came out of the kitchen with 2 mugs of tea and froze when he saw her face. "What's wrong?" Silently, she turned the laptop to show him. Damien's jaw tightened as he read, then he set down the mugs and sat beside her. "I'm sorry," he said. "I knew this would happen eventually. The media loves to make me into a villain. It's not your fault, but it's hard seeing our private life turned into entertainment." "Do you want to make a statement? Go public officially?" Fiona thought about it. Part of her wanted to hide to keep what they had private and protected. But another part, the stronger part, wanted to stand beside him and show the world that people could change, that love was real. "Yes," she said. "Let's tell our story on our terms." They gave an interview to a respected journalist, sitting together in Damien's office, hands intertwined. They talked about how they met, about the warehouse campaign and the estate upstate. Damien was honest about his past, admitting his mistakes without making excuses. "I was lost for a long time," he said. "I confused success with happiness, and I hurt people because I was too broken to let anyone in. But Fiona changed that. She saw through the reputation and the money and challenged me to be better. I'm not perfect now, but I'm trying, every day, to be the man she deserves." Fiona talked about her initial skepticism and how Damien had slowly proven himself through actions, not words. She talked about falling in love with someone who was kind and driven and surprisingly funny. The interview ran with a photo of them laughing together, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. People loved a redemption story, loved seeing the bad boy grow up, but not everyone was happy. A week after the interview, Damien's ex-girlfriend Veronica showed up at his office. Fiona was there, reviewing ad mock-ups when the door burst open. "Damien," Veronica said, ignoring Fiona completely. "We need to talk." Veronica was stunning, all long legs and perfect makeup, exactly the kind of woman Damien used to date. Fiona felt a spike of insecurity but pushed it down. "Veronica, this isn't a good time," Damien said, standing up. "I don't care. You gave that interview and made it sound like all your relationships were meaningless. What we had was real." "No, it wasn't," Damien said firmly. "We dated for 3 weeks. I never promised you anything beyond that, because you were too scared to commit. And now you're parading around with her, pretending to be someone you're not." "I'm not pretending. I've changed." "People don't change, Damien. You're going to get bored of her just like you got bored of me and everyone else. It's what you do." Fiona stood up, her heart pounding. "I think you should leave." Veronica finally looked at her, her expression contemptuous. "And I think you should enjoy it while it lasts, honey, because it won't." Damien crossed the room and opened the door. "Get out, Veronica. I don't want to see you again." She left in a whirl of perfume and anger, and the door slammed behind her. Damien turned to Fiona, his face pale. "I'm sorry. I didn't know she would do that." "Do you think she's right?" Fiona asked quietly. "That you're going to get bored of me?" No, God, no. He came to her and took both her hands. Fiona, I wake up every morning and my first thought is you. I spend all day wanting to tell you things, to share moments with you. When I imagine my future, you're in every single picture. I'm not going to get bored because this, what we have, is the most interesting thing that's ever happened to me. She wanted to believe him. She did believe him. But Veronica's words had planted a seed of doubt that was hard to ignore. Over the next few weeks, that doubt grew. Every time Damien's phone rang, Fiona wondered if it was another ex. Every time they went out and women stared at him, she remembered his reputation. She tried to hide her insecurity, but Damien noticed. "Talk to me," he said one night. They were at his apartment and he had cooked dinner, something simple but delicious. "You've been distant." "I'm fine." "You're not. You've been pulling away for days. Is it Veronica? Because I swear to you that's over and has been for years." "It's not just her," Fiona admitted. "It's everything. Your past, my insecurity, the feeling that I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop." Damien set down his fork and looked at her, really looked at her. "I don't know how to prove to you that I'm in this for real. I've shown you my family, introduced you to my friends, spent every free moment with you. What more can I do?" "I don't know," Fiona said, and she felt tears prick her eyes. "Maybe this is my problem, not yours." "It's not a problem. It's understandable. I gave you every reason not to trust me." He reached across the table and took her hand. "But I'm asking you to trust me anyway. I'm asking you to take a leap of faith and believe that I've changed, that what I feel for you is different from anything I've felt before. I'm trying. Then keep trying, and I'll keep showing up. I'll keep proving it until you believe it." That night, they talked for hours, really talked. Damien told her about the years after his father's accident, about feeling helpless and angry and determined to never be vulnerable again. He told her about building his business and his reputation simultaneously, using women as armor against real connection. He told her about the day he met her and how terrifying it was to feel something genuine. Fiona told him about her own fears, about watching her parents' loving marriage and wondering if she would ever find that. She told him about past relationships that fizzled out, about feeling like she was too ambitious or too independent for most men. "You're perfect as you are," Damien said fiercely. "Your ambition, your independence, your refusal to take my crap, those are the things I love about you." Fiona froze. "What did you say?" Damien's eyes widened slightly, like he had not meant to say it out loud. Then his expression softened. "I love you. I'm in love with you, Fiona. I have been for weeks, maybe from the start. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to scare you, but I can't keep it in anymore. I love you." Her heart felt too big for her chest. "I love you too," she whispered. "I'm scared and insecure and probably a little crazy, but I love you." He kissed her then, deep and sweet, and carried her to his bedroom. They made love slowly, tenderly, whispering promises against each other's skin. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, Fiona felt the last of her doubts begin to fade. The warehouse campaign launched to massive success. The apartments sold out within a week, and suddenly, everyone wanted to work with Vance Properties. Damien gave Fiona and her team full credit, and her career skyrocketed. She was offered a partnership at the firm, and Damien threw her a celebration party at the estate upstate, which was now in the early stages of renovation. "Look at you," he said, pulling her aside during the party. They stood on the balcony overlooking the gardens, which were being restored to their former glory. "A partner at 28, I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have. You're talented and hardworking. I just gave you the opportunity to shine." Fiona leaned her head on his shoulder. "I love this place. I can't wait to see it finished." "Actually," Damien said, and there was something nervous in his voice, "I wanted to talk to you about that, About the estate. What about it? He pulled away slightly so he could look at her. I bought it thinking it would be a hotel. But the more time I spend here, the more I think it should be something else. Something more personal. Like what? Like a home. Our home. Fiona's breath caught. Damien. I know it's big, too big for just two people. But I keep imagining us here. Imagining kids running through these rooms. Imagining growing old together in this place. I know we've only been together for 6 months, and maybe this is crazy, but I can't imagine my future without you in it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Fiona's hands flew to her mouth. Fiona Kerr, you challenged me from the first moment we met. You saw past my reputation and my money and made me want to be a better man. You made me believe in love, in real love, the kind that lasts. Will you marry me? He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds. It was unique and beautiful, just like everything Damien did for her. Yes, Fiona said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, yes, yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms and spinning her around while their friends and family cheered from inside. When he set her down, he kissed her like it was the first time and the last time and every time in between. The engagement was a whirlwind. They planned a wedding for the following spring, deciding to get married at the estate once the main house was habitable. Eleanor and Fiona's mother bonded over wedding planning, and Marcus appointed himself Damien's unofficial brother-in-law, showing up to help with renovations and offering unsolicited advice. Damien sold his penthouse apartment and moved in with Fiona while the estate was being finished. It was cramped and chaotic, two successful people trying to share a one-bedroom apartment, but it was also wonderful. They learned each other's routines and quirks, learned how to fight fair and make up thoroughly. I never thought I'd be this happy, Damien admitted one Sunday morning. They were tangled together in bed, sunlight streaming through the windows. I spent so many years thinking love was a trap, something that made you weak, but it's the opposite. Loving you makes me stronger. Same, Fiona said, running her fingers through his hair. You make me brave. The wedding was perfect. The estate gleamed in the spring sunshine, the gardens in full bloom. Fiona wore a simple lace gown, and Damien wore a perfectly tailored suit. They wrote their own vows, promising to challenge each other and support each other, and love each other through everything life brought. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Damien kissed her with such joy that everyone laughed and applauded. The reception was held in the ballroom, the same room where they had danced months before, and this time it was filled with lights and music and people they loved. Remember when I said I could imagine people dancing here? Damien whispered as they swayed to their first dance. I remember. This is better than I imagined. They honeymooned in Italy, 2 weeks of coastal towns and incredible food and lazy mornings in bed. When they returned, they moved into the estate officially. It was massive and a little overwhelming, but they slowly made it their own, filling rooms with furniture and laughter and love. Fiona continued working, though she cut back her hours to focus on projects she was passionate about. Damien brought her in as a consultant on all his developments, valuing her creative vision. They became a power couple in the city, but at home they were just Damien and Fiona, cooking dinner together and arguing about what to watch on television. A year into their marriage, Fiona discovered she was pregnant. She told Damien over breakfast, sliding the positive test across the table with shaking hands. His face went through a dozen emotions before landing on pure joy. "We're having a baby," he asked, his voice thick. "We're having a baby." He came around the table and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "I'm going to be a dad. I'm going to be a dad, and I'm going to be nothing like mine. I'm going to be there for everything." He kept that promise. When their daughter was born 8 months later, Damien was the first to hold her, tears streaming down his face as he counted her tiny fingers and toes. "She's perfect," he whispered. "She looks just like you." They named her Grace, and she wrapped them both around her little finger from day one. Damien was a devoted father, changing diapers and waking up for midnight feedings without complaint. Fiona watched him with their daughter and fell in love with him all over again. When Grace was 2, they had a son they named after Damien's father, and then another daughter 3 years after that. The estate filled with noise and chaos, and so much love it seemed impossible that Damien had once been a man afraid of commitment. On their 5th wedding anniversary, they stood on the same balcony where he had proposed, watching their children play in the gardens below. "Do you ever miss your old life?" Fiona asked. The freedom, the excitement. Damien turned to her, his expression incredulous. "Are you kidding? That wasn't freedom. That was emptiness. This right here, this is everything I never knew I wanted." Even with the sleepless nights and the tantrums and the chaos, especially with all of that. He pulled her close, and she rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "You saved me, Fiona. You took a broken, scared man and showed him what real love looks like. You gave me a family and a home and a reason to be better every single day. I choose this life, choose you 1,000,000 times over." "I choose you too," she said softly. "My reformed bad boy." "Not reformed," Damien corrected. "Transformed by you." Below, Grace called for them, waving wildly. They waved back, and Damien took Fiona's hand, lacing their fingers together. The ring on her finger caught the sunlight, the sapphire glowing deep blue. They went down to join their children, and as Fiona watched Damien lift their youngest daughter onto his shoulders, she thought about that first day in the conference room. She had seen a wealthy player with a reputation, someone to be wary of. She had never imagined that beneath the headlines was a man capable of such deep, transformative love. But that was the thing about love, real love. It changed people. It made them brave and vulnerable and better. Damien had walked into her life as a bad boy with a past, but he had become her partner, her love, her home. And she had never been more grateful for taking that leap of faith, for believing that people could change, for trusting that sometimes the most unexpected person could become exactly what you needed. Years later, when their children were grown and starting families of their own, Fiona and Damien would sit on that same balcony and remember. They would remember the beginning, the middle, and everything in between. They would remember doubt and fear and the choice to love anyway. And they would know that they had built something that lasted, something real and true and beautiful. A love story that began with skepticism and transformed into certainty. A partnership that weathered storms and celebrated triumphs. A life full of meaning and purpose and joy. Damien Vance, the millionaire player who everyone said would never settle down, had found his forever in Fiona Kerr. And she had found hers in him, the bad boy who became her man, her love, her everything. Their story was proof that people could change, that love could heal, and that sometimes the best things in life were the ones you never saw coming. They had built an empire together, not just of buildings and businesses, but of love and family and memories that would last generations. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Not the headlines or the money or the reputation. Just two people who chose each other every single day, who fought for their love and nurtured it and watched it grow into something extraordinary. As the sun set over the estate, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Damien pulled Fiona close and kissed her temple. "Best decision I ever made," he murmured. "What was?" "Walking into that conference room 5 years ago, being late." seeing you for the first time and knowing somehow that my life was about to change." "My life changed too," Fiona said, smiling up at him. "The millionaire player fell for me, and I never expected the bad boy would become my man. But here we are." "Here we are," Damien agreed. "And I wouldn't change a single thing." Neither would she. Because this right here was everything. This was love, real and lasting and true. This was happily ever after, not perfect but perfect for them. And as night fell over the estate they had built together, Fiona Vance knew with absolute certainty that some love stories, the best ones, were worth every risk, every fear, every leap of faith. Because sometimes, just sometimes, the bad boy really did become the best man. And the woman who took a chance on him got to live a love story more beautiful than any she could have imagined. Their forever had begun with doubt and blossomed into certainty. And it would continue through all the years to come, a testament to the transformative power of love and the magic that happened when two people chose to see past reputations and headlines and into the heart of what really mattered. Grace grew up to be an architect, designing buildings with her father's business sense and her mother's creative vision. Their son became a teacher, honoring his grandparents' legacy. Their youngest followed her own path into environmental science, determined to make the world better. And through it all, Damien and Fiona remained each other's constant. They grew older together, silver threading through their hair, laugh lines deepening around their eyes. But the way Damien looked at Fiona never changed. It was always the same look he had given her in that conference room in the abandoned estate on their wedding day, a look of wonder and love and gratitude. "I love you," he would say, every single day without fail. "I love you too," she would reply. "My reformed bad boy." And he would laugh and kiss her and prove, yet again, that people could change, that love could transform, that sometimes the most unexpected beginning led to the most beautiful ending. Their grandchildren would eventually play in the same gardens where their children had played, and the estate would remain in the family for generations, a monument to a love that started with skepticism and grew into forever. But that was still to come. For now, Damien and Fiona Vance simply held each other on their balcony, watching the stars come out one by one, grateful for every moment that had led them here, to this love, this life, this extraordinary, unexpected, absolutely perfect happily ever after.